Hello, hello. This is episode 318 of the Keto Diet Podcast. My name is Leanne Vogel. I'm the host. I'm also a holistic nutritionist, the best-selling author of The Keto Diet, The Keto Diet Cookbook, and Keto for Women. Those are my 3 paperback books. And today we have my friend Priscilla Blevins chatting with us about mental health and our ketogenic diet. We are covering what symptoms of mental health can kind of point us to the fact that a ketogenic diet may be best, why keto works so well for our mental health and supporting that. And also we really dive deep into supplementation and why both of us don't recommend that you just have a free-for-all around your supplementation, that you really test and not guess what's going on with your levels, whether that be vitamin D, zinc, and a whole bunch of other things, and how this relates to our mental health. And lastly, the behaviors that we can start to look at on a daily basis to help with our mental health process. We're covering anxiety, overwhelm, depression. It's a really good episode. You can find more from Priscilla by going to her website, Keto Girl Nutritionist. I'll include her links down below this video if you want to check that out. And before we get to our interview today, I just want to thank our 2 sponsors for making today's show possible. Without them, this show would not exist because it actually takes a lot of time and energy and people to make all of this happen. So a big thank you to Dry Farm Wines for first supporting us, second for making awesome keto safe wine. You can find more details right up there. I will link up to their website there where you can get a bottle of keto safe wine for a penny. And last but certainly not least, we have Eaton Hemp, who makes CBD products. I actually talk about the benefits of CBD in today's episode as it relates to getting adequate sleep and also getting my clients to get to sleep. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And if you want to learn more about CBD products, you can click that link right up there. I've written a bunch about CBD and the benefits of using it on your ketogenic diet. Okay, let's get to today's episode. Hey, Priscilla, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm so good. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So today I wanted to talk about, you actually suggested chatting about mental health because you're starting to see this a lot more and more in your practice. And so we wanted to touch on mental health. We'll probably throw in a whole bunch of other things. But I'd love for you to just take a moment to introduce yourself. I know I just read your bio and everything, but if you want to just, in your own words, tell us who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about.
Absolutely. So I am Keto Girl Nutritionist. I love what I do because I love just making keto not just like, here's your macros, here's protein and carbs, blah, blah, blah. I love to get to the root cause of weight loss because I know for women, it's complex. It's not a one size fits all. So that's what I do. I'm passionate about it because I've seen the benefits of keto helping women with their hormone balances, PCOS, hypothyroidism, high cortisol stress levels, like we previously talked about. But now it's transitioning into also mental health issues. Like, sure, if you have a hormone imbalance, like you're going to have some mental health issues going on, some anxiety and all that other great stuff, right? But some people just purely have the mental health issue going on. Like weight isn't too much of a factor for them. It's just the mental health. And so that's what I've been seeing more and more of with psychologists and psychiatrists referring clients to do keto because they're seeing the amazing benefits of keto. So yes, that's what I love about keto. That's the kind of clients I work with. So I'm super excited to talk more about that with you this time.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And in fact, I hired a dietitian a while back to help me because sometimes it's nice to just sit back, relax, and have somebody take care of you and maybe point out things that you need that perhaps you're just, as a practitioner, sometimes you get blind and you've been looking at your own stuff so long. It's nice to have feedback. And I had a long conversation with her about the carbohydrates and the function of the brain. And we disagreed. She was like, no, carbohydrates should not make your brain do anything funky. And I'm like, no, like this is the reason why I eat a ketogenic diet and a low carb diet, because when I am on carbs, I am not the same person mentally. Like I am more overwhelmed. I'm more anxious. I nag on my husband more. I get, overwhelmed and anxious a lot more. My ADHD skyrockets. Like I have such a hard time just staying focused on one task. Are these sort of things that you're seeing people come to keto because of?
Exactly. So that's one of the things, like they come to keto for the weight loss, right? They're like, I'm tired of the weight, going up and down, or they want to lose some X, Y, and Z. But the reason why they're really staying is for the mental health reasons. Because we all know calorie counting works until it doesn't, right? It doesn't work for most women long term. And the biggest problem is it's doesn't provide the brain with the fat that's calming, which we can talk more about. And so, yeah, absolutely. I would 100% say that all of my clients at the end of working with me, it's the mental health. They're like, I feel so good. Like, sure, I love the weight loss, but the mental health reason is why I want to keep doing this. Like, I just have more energy. I don't have the anxiety and the panic attacks, you name it. Like, it's so much better. And it's just a beautiful thing to see that transformation.
Yes, completely. And something that you said too with the brain and fats, and why are we seeing this? Like, what I get
Mhm.
this question a lot, like, why do carbs make me crazy? Like, what's happening, and why are we seeing these changes as we start to bring fats into the picture?
Right, right. So correct me if I'm wrong, but has mental health, like anxiety and depression, not skyrocketed over like the last 20 years? Like we're seeing a pandemic, right? In my opinion, like people are wanting antidepressants, they're feeling stressed and anxious all the time. Then are we doing more research? Maybe, but I think there's a correlation with that and the obesity epidemic as well. Like we're eating more sugar, we're eating more refined carbs, and mental health is skyrocketing at the same time. So I think there's a correlation for sure with the sugar and mental health for sure.
Yeah, and when we even think of Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
understanding that a lot of doctors are now calling it diabetes type 3, that these brains cannot run on glucose, and that's why we're seeing this deterioration. And so if you just think, we're not talking about as far as dementia, but if our
Right.
brain cells can run on either ketones or glucose, and we
Mhm.
know that ketones are a more clean burning fuel, then
Mhm.
it would make sense that when we have ketones that our brains are functioning a lot better. And
Yeah.
a really good thing that I encourage my clients to do, when we first start going and they're like, I don't know, is keto right for me? I'm not sure this is going to help. Sometimes
Mhm.
I'll recommend they grab some exogenous ketones
Mhm.
and fast for the morning as long as they can try to take it, and just have some exogenous ketones, just a little bit. Like if the
Mhm.
package says have a teaspoon, I'm like a quarter teaspoon, add some to water, and just take notice of your brain, like just how fast can you recall your aunts and uncles in your family, or what do you have on your planner, or a quick memory game of, okay,
Mhm.
what are you doing on Wednesday? Say it all out loud, close your eyes and repeat it. Like, how quickly are you able to recall this information? And it is amazing the difference. And that's just a little bit of exogenous ketones.
Right. Right. I mean, like, it's, I call BS on the whole glucose, carbs are the primary source of energy for the brain. Like, we're going to touch it. Come on. If your body in starvation mode goes to ketones, it starts using that as the primary source of fat and it's protecting the brain. That's why. Why would that not be the preferred source of fat? Like, yes, we can get all to research and all the crap, but I'm just saying it has a powerful impact on the functioning of the brain, protecting it. And in my opinion, it really is the preferred source of fuel because fat is calming. So many times we're seeing like the neurotransmitters, we can get technical, called GABA, being so deficient and not working like it should be. And that just has, when you're on a keto diet, they see that those happy feelings, those happy neurotransmitters called GABA, they greatly increase because a lot of mental health issues stem from inappropriately being able to utilize glucose as energy and so carbs. So they're not actually able to use carbs. So yeah, diabetes of the brain, exactly what I think.
Mm. And so what else you mentioned at the beginning, kind of with your practice,
Mhm.
and I love this about your work. And it's
Mhm.
something that I attempt to do as well, is yeah, we have a bunch of stuff going on, but what's at the root cause of these issues? And I think especially with mental health, there's usually a bunch of causes to these issues. Yes, it is carbohydrates, but oftentimes too, when we look at mental health, would you say that there's also nutrition deficiencies that are kind of at play also when it comes to mental health issues?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I always love it. If, client has any labs, I am a guru at labs. I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's see what's going on. Of course, we can always check the thyroid issues, or anything going on with PCOS, but kind of getting more root down to checking their zinc levels, the vitamin D3 and iodine and all these other ones, and vitamin B12, and just kind of looking at those as well. And there is oftentimes they're greatly deficient in those as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up vitamin D. I'll include this in the show notes, but there was a paper that was done in 2015, a review study, and it said that people that are lower in vitamin D show a higher propensity toward anxiety disorders.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's one lab that I've seen in the 13 years I've been doing this work. One lab, I saw it last week, and this woman had perfect vitamin D levels. And I was like, I had to double take. I'm like, are you sure this is right? Did you
Right.
just test this? Like, what were you taking? How is this? Is this okay? Like,
Yeah, it never happens. Like everyone I always see has to be put on vitamin D of some sort. Like even like there's research done that like I'm in San Antonio. So even in a hot climate like San Antonio, I guarantee you the majority, like 85% at least, if not more, are vitamin D deficient. I mean, it's like you can be outside and you're not absorbing it like you should. It really comes from the diet. It doesn't matter how long you're outside or not.
yeah, I started my vitamin D journey has gone on for a really long time. I was diagnosed with very, very severe low vitamin D levels. And no matter what I did, shots, supplements, going out in the sun, it did not help.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I massively increased my animal protein consumption and went into the sun and got on a proper supplement that I was able to level it off. Now I'm sitting around 90, which is awesome. That has never happened in the history of my life.
Ah,
But also what I think a lot of people do with vitamin D is they just go on, I mean, like 10,000 IUs every day, all the time. And I have concerns over that also. What do you do in your practice? And what's your kind of recommendation on vitamin D as we know that it helps our mental health so much?
right. So, I mean, yeah, I think 10,000 is a bit much in my personal opinion. I think something around like 2,000. 2,000 is a maintainable. 2,000 IUs a day is very maintainable for the long term. And vitamin D3, because there's another one called D2, and that's more used. Oh, just use it for like a month at a really high dosage. And it's not meant to be used over a long period of time. So D3 is the one that you use consistently for a long period of time. And it's usually by month 2 of taking that in conjunction with changing their diet and keto and all the good stuff, that they're like, okay, I am getting more energy. I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping better. So yeah.
Yes, yes, to touch on the sleep, that's so important. I'm totally with you in that camp. How I raised my vitamin D from the very, very low level was 5,000 IUs a day, and I
Mhm.
checked my vitamin D monthly. And once I got up to that level, I went down to a thousand. And I'm
Mhm.
so happy that you mentioned the D3K. Like I do D3K2, and that
Mhm.
combination is like, ah, it's just perfect.
Right, right. Good,
Yeah.
good.
And I think another deficiency that's huge that you touched on also is
Mhm.
zinc.
Yes.
Ah, zinc deficiency. And
Mhm.
women who have hormonal birth control, we know that their zinc is going to be lower because it increases their copper.
Mhm.
Do you know of the signs of zinc deficiency or kind of what people should be looking for when it comes to zinc and mental issues?
So that's a little harder, but a big one is anxiety and irritability. Just kind of like the little mood swings that are subtly going on, and they can turn into big things. And you just feel like, why am I crazy? Does it feel like there's a full moon out every day? That's kind of how women would equate, in my opinion, the zinc deficiency going on.
Yeah. So we're gonna include a bunch of different, like you shared some papers. I'm gonna include
Yeah.
some zinc deficiency also can lead to depression, increased
Mhm.
anxiety, irritability, emotional instability, Oh, this is an interesting one. Induce defects in social behavior. So maybe that's our next piece to this is, did
Uh-huh.
you notice when you started eating enough fat? I know for me, I could actually be around people.
Yeah.
Did you
Oh,
notice this?
I'm not gonna lie. I literally felt like within 2 months after going keto, I went from an introvert to an extrovert. Like I was like, I used to want to be a homebody and I didn't want to go out. I never felt like it. And then I was like, oh, I want to go out. I want to see people. I want to be out, have a drink. I don't mind loud music now. Like things like that used to really like tick me and I just couldn't handle it. Like it would almost put me into like an anxiety attack if I did it too much. And so it was just crazy how literally it can change your whole personality in a sense.
Completely. I remember when we were living in Montreal, I was vegan at the time and I had been vegan
Mhm.
for about 8 years. And we went to this mall. And I remember feeling so incredibly overwhelmed. And there was so many people and so much noise that those sorts of environments where I was around a lot of people, like I would avoid them at
Yeah.
all costs. Like it made me really overwhelmed and really terrified. And I would say about 6 or 7 months into my keto journey, I remember making a video and I didn't realize until that moment somebody had asked me a question about mental health. And I was like, wait, that doesn't happen anymore. Like I can handle all the noises and I can stay focused. And I'm not so overwhelmed around people.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like fat, it goes beyond just like being another energy source and weight loss. It literally is calming and changes just it just brings about a chill personality. That's how I would like, that's the easiest way. Like, I just developed more of a I'm zen, I'm chill, whatever. And I didn't care. It was just so relaxing compared to previously from my low calorie diets that I had been on, or just low carb, but not increasing the fat. But I was always still on edge and still had that anxiety. And then just seeing that beautiful transition to keto, it's just so life changing.
Completely. And I think also too, when I'm going to paint a picture. So a woman goes on the ketogenic diet and she's there for weight loss, but then like us, it sounds like she starts noticing I'm not weird around people. I can focus, I'm feeling so much better. And then the birthday cake rolls around or the event rolls around and she's nervous because, oh my gosh, if I eat these carbohydrates, what's it going to do to my brain? Do you have any advice for that person who, I mean, it's a delicate balance between wanting to live your life,
Mhm.
but also knowing that when you have those carbohydrates, you're not going to feel so great. What's kind of your approach when it comes to that?
So it depends, right? That's my answer for everything. But it really depends your journey and when you've started, how far you've come in being keto, right? If you're a newbie and let's say you have a history of binge eating and you've only been on keto for like 3 weeks, right? You already know it's amazing, but you're around the birthday cake. I would caution maybe now is not the best time to have that birthday cake quite yet because you still aren't there. You might feel overwhelmed. You might get like, oh, I gotta have more sugar. But I would say more for an individual that's I'd guess around like 2 months, a little more fat adapted. They're more confident and listening to their body's fullness, and they can really tell. That's by the time I have a client that will go out, they'll have that piece of cake, and they're like, whoa, I had just like a half a piece or a quarter of a piece, and that was too much. But I could stop because my brain just told me that was enough. And so that's just like cool. Like they can still go out and enjoy the things. It's not addicting anymore. And their brain is the one that tells them more than the stomach.
I'm glad that you mentioned the addictive piece, which is something we
Mhm.
haven't talked about yet as it relates to even mental health on a ketogenic diet.
Mhm.
Something I've noticed for myself personally and also my clients, there's that funky transition where we go keto and all we want is carbohydrates, but then it kind of lulls down and you're like, I'm not that interested in this actually. Or you have a little bite and you're like, no, I'm good. And that to not be crazy around food is a huge mental health benefit, at least for
Oh yeah.
myself.
Absolutely. Like one of my best stories is a girl. She does have PCOS, right? And one of the biggest things she struggled with was binge eating, especially around the time her period rolled over, because she just would have those intense cravings, and it was just a mess. After month 3, she would literally get to her period, and she said, I decided to have a bite of my husband's chocolate bar. I tasted it and I'm like, this isn't even good anymore. I don't want any more. And so that's just the transition, beautiful transition that she went through from day one to just month 3. She didn't even like the taste of a Snickers bar anymore. And she felt in control and relieved.
Oh, you know what? I have a very similar story. Kevin and I were on our second keto book tour, and this was like, we had done all of the US. We were just starting Canada. We were going from Victoria to Vancouver or Vancouver to Calgary. I can't remember. And our flight got upgraded, which was awesome. I love when that happens on tour because you're so tired. You've been on a billion planes.
Right.
And we sat down first class, and they're going around with this big basket of large chocolate bars, and you can have as much as you want. And Kevin, ever since I remember, we've been together, I think 14 years now, he had a Kit Kat bar every day. Every day he would go to IGA, it's like a grocery store in Canada, and he would get a Kit Kat bar and a water, and he would eat that on his way home from work every day. And so Kevin had gone keto on the tour because he was like, I'm around a bunch of keto people. You're talking about keto. I probably should try this keto thing. And so he had been keto for about 40 days.
Wow.
And we jump on the plane, and the lady comes by with the big Kit Kat bars, and he's like, no, thank you. And I was like, what? And he's like, I just don't feel like it.
No.
Ah.
And it's like people, that's the biggest fear when you go keto is I'm going to have to say no to all the foods I love, all the carbs. But the thing you don't realize is those foods that you love now most likely are going to be few and far 4 months later, 3 months later. Like they just aren't going to be your favorite foods anymore. And like, it's hard because people don't realize that. And then once they're there, they're like, hey, I love other foods better for me than that. And so it's really cool.
Yes, completely. And I guess it's worth noting specifically as we are starting our ketogenic diet, something I've noticed, especially as it relates to mental health, is, and we touched on this a little bit with vitamin deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, but also if we are not eating quality food, there might be a woman listening that's like, well, what the heck? I'm still dealing with anxiety and overwhelm. Perhaps my child has ADHD and we're trying, but it's not working. Do you feel like food quality has a role to play for the results that we experience as it relates to our mental health?
Absolutely. So just like when it comes to weight loss, right? The biggest thing I always tell clients, if you're not losing weight on keto, most likely you have inflammation going on. Okay. Because if you have inflammation, or you have a vitamin deficiency, even that can be out of whack. Weight loss is not going to fall off. And the main reasons for the inflammation are, well, if you have a hormone imbalance, we do know gluten, dairy can be big reasons for the inflammation, but also highly processed keto snacks. Like they'll even have gluten in them, or they have all these chemicals in them that you're like, what is that? I can't even pronounce it. And so they're contributing to the reason why you're not losing weight. I see that all the time. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we can get so tied up. And I mean, I still do this. It's been 8 years. I know better, but
Yeah.
some company will send me something. Like if I get a perfect keto box, in fact, I just got a new box of perfect keto bars. And I'm like, Leanne, only eat one, because one is nice, but like
Mhm.
8 in a day is not okay. Like
Mhm.
it's just not okay. And I think we get so comfortable with keeping our diet the same or
Mhm.
relying on the same foods that we don't get that variety that's required.
Mhm. And it's really easy. Like, I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, okay, I'll get myself keto cookies, right? And they'll come in a nice little cute bag and they're like 5 servings. I'll have it all because it's like only 2 grams of net carbs for a serving, or only 10 for the entire bag, right? And I'm like, oh, these are so good. They're cookies. And then I eat the entire bag because it's keto cookies. What the heck? That's okay. But it still has an effect on the brain. The brain can still register it as sugar, whether we believe it or not. And then it has all the other additives in there that can cause inflammation in the brain. So you might not see the whole improvement in ADHD or anxiety, even though you might, think it's keto, you're hitting your macros. So I always spend less time on let's count the macros and more time on the quality of food and what that looks like.
Awesome. And so we've talked about nutrition deficiencies, rather a little bit of inflammation. Do you recommend testing? Like the whole test, don't guess is really where I try to put myself, because oftentimes clients will be like, it's totally fine. Everything's okay. And I'm like, but is it? Like, I think we should test this before we put you on a vitamin D. Because if your levels, I mean,
Yes.
it's very rare, like I said, that vitamin D is going to be high, but we should not be supplementing with vitamin D if it's high enough. And
Right.
so what's your feeling on testing?
So yes, when it comes to food, there's nothing wrong with experimenting with it, cutting out some gluten and dairy to see how you feel and watching the quality of food without getting tested. That is perfectly fine. But it's more for, okay, what's going on? You're not losing that weight as well, or kind of like, why aren't we seeing the changes? And that's before I ever put anyone on any type of vitamin or mineral, even though it's not a drug, I still consider it a form of a drug, right? Because our bodies, get out of whack if we're deficient. So they're going to be out of whack if it's too high. So I do love labs for that reason. I turn into a little lab geek and get excited when I'm like, "Ooh, these are the ranges that you're in." So yes, absolutely. I think it's a great call.
Yeah, it's kind of playing that, as somebody who has a one-on-one practice also, it's
Mhm.
so fun to take your clients through that process and educate them on what to look for on their labs, because those numbers that we see on the panels are based on a bunch of sick people going in, getting tested, and then they make those ranges. But there are optimal ranges not only for healthy people, but for each individual. Like for example, with my thyroid, I know that my free T3 has to be considerably higher than
Mm,
what even my holistic practitioner would say is okay. But I know that if it's not at that level for me, I'm not going to feel optimal. And so
right.
it's kind of that, we were talking about before we started recording, like how great it would be if people had about $500 in a side bank account every 3 months that we could do testing, but it does get very expensive.
Yes, absolutely. And, it really just depends, like, with yourself having a thyroid issue, or are you a fairly calm and healthy individual? It really just depends, right? And I do love it for my girls with hypothyroidism. Like I had a client, like she was slowly seeing weight loss and inches lost. And she's like, she had lost maybe 16 pounds in 4 months, which for hypothyroidism is amazing. Like we got to celebrate that. But for her, she's like, it's not as fast as, X, Y, and Z who does keto, right? They're not losing like 30 pounds or whatever in the timeline. So I was like, well, let's go get your labs tested. And so she went to this holistic doctor that I refer a lot of my clients to. And her doctor said, oh my God, your thyroid, you're no longer hypothyroid. You're actually hyperthyroid. We have to take you off of your levothyroxine so that because your thyroid hormones have literally balanced out being on keto. So her in her mind, she was having slow success, but in the end, her thyroid hormones had literally balanced out. And so that was just a beautiful thing. She actually got to get off of her medicine. And yeah, that was after 4 months.
That's interesting. Like, I'm just so curious, like why she would have been put on levothyroxine as a hypothyroid. Did she have Hashimoto's?
She did have some variation of that. Yes.
Oh, okay. 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 Yeah. Because anytime I see that on a panel, I'm like, and can we talk to your doctor about being put on desiccated or armor thyroid, NP
Yes.
thyroid?
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors do put them on levothyroxine, which it's not my favorite.
Completely. Me neither. And that's, I think, another piece of the mental health thing. I mean, I have a couple of experiences. Oh
Yeah.
man. I think because you're a health practitioner, you like, I mean, I run my labs like full complete labs every 3 months. And I'm always like kind of playing with things and levers and discovering new things I can test for. And we were talking earlier that I just got certified to read Dutch panels, which has been so fun to add to my practice and also just for me to understand it all. And when I was, when I was in Canada, I was on a desiccated thyroid. And when we came down to the US and I couldn't get my thyroid capsules, I switched over to was it NP thyroid first? Yes. NP thyroid, same component of desiccated thyroid. I looked at actually how they compound it, what the ingredients were, I don't even know what it's called. What is it? Like the chemistry,
Mhm.
the chemical makeup of this supplement. It was the same. Girl, I went crazy. Like I was so
Mhm.
depressed. Like I was depressed. I was moody. I
Mhm.
felt completely out of control mentally. And months went by and my husband, just on the off chance, he's like, didn't you change your thyroid? Should you like test it or something? Like what's going on? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the thyroid medicine. I'm
Yeah.
not on the right dosage. And
Mhm.
that was just like rocked me. And it's unfortunate. The thyroid is such a tricky tricky thing to balance, but can cause a
Mhm.
lot of mental issues if not properly medicated or not properly supported. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Like it's it's like the fine balance, right? Because I have worked clinically even with like hyperparathyroidism and hypoparathyroidism. So it's a little different type of thyroid, but you still are working with vitamin D, you're working with calcium, and then these other minerals. And it's like every time you feel like you're moving one, decreasing one, and it's just like, but it can be a beautiful thing when you finally get it balanced out and you're like, they feel good. They're happy and the weight is stabilizing. And it's like, okay, I did my job. I'm so happy. It worked out in the end.
Yes, and it takes a lot of finessing and
Yes.
when it comes to thyroid, I think, and I hate to kind of take this stance because I usually don't take a black and white stance. I
Mhm.
have not been able to, for myself personally and my clients, fix the thyroid, support the thyroid without testing multiple times. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Absolutely. Yes, because it can be a finicky thing. It might be a little lower, then a little higher, and you just have to consistently. I mean, when I worked clinically, monthly where I did that because they would just change. They would go up a little bit, go down a little bit, and then once you had it right, then you would maybe wait like 3 months to redraw them again. But it's always that you do have to keep an eye on it for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, oh, this is such a pain point for me, working with clients who their doctor puts them on
Oh yeah.
just Synthroid, let's say, for example, and it's like,
Mhm.
let's test another 6 months to a year.
Yep. No.
What? No, no. And I think especially when I go through very stressful periods, like for
Mhm.
example, when I'm on tour and I have to be on some the last two tours, I doubled my thyroid medication. It needed to be doubled because of the stress.
Wow. But at least you knew that. Like you knew
Yes.
yourself. And that's always the biggest thing. I always tell clients, you got to know yourself. And then once you know yourself, you know how much and how little. You're your own practitioner, right? You're the doctor of yourself. But it's not just something you learn overnight. You got to practice it and know yourself. It takes time.
Yes, completely. And I guess since we talked a little bit about testing,
Mhm.
what do you recommend for thyroid testing? That's like the kind of the go-to thyroid tests.
Oh gosh, girl. That's not my specialty when it comes to the hypothyroidism. I leave that up to my functional medicine doctor for sure. But she definitely checks the cortisol, the T4, the T3, TSH. But those are the main ones that I'm like, okay, what else do you have to say about it? So yeah.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
about you?
completely. I'm the same. I'm the same. I think the biggest pain point is when people diagnose thyroid issues with just TSH.
Oh yeah.
I
No.
think that's just, I think the initial test,
Mhm.
no, I disagree with what I'm about to say. I'm like, if you just want to test the TSH and then if it's off, test everything else. But the TSH can be quote unquote balanced. But as soon as you look at that free T3 or free T4, um, you're going to know you kind of need
Oh yeah.
the big picture when you're looking at the thyroid. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because like I'll have individuals say, I don't think I have a thyroid issue, but then we'll look at, okay, maybe they did for themselves take like a food sensitivity, out there, some test out there. And I look at them, I take them with a grain of salt. Not all of them are very accurate, but I'll look at them. I'm like, it looks like you have sensitivities to the same foods that my hypothyroid patients typically have. And so once we work with that alone, and then they finally get tested and they find, oh, I do have these off the T3 and T4s. It was, even though the TSH was like, okay, whatever, with the normal doctor, then they're like, okay, I do got to watch these foods. I do have hypothyroidism, and I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I'm one of those patients always. It's like, if I'm dealing with something, I hope that there's a problem. I hope that there's a diagnosis so that I can fix it
Oh
or
yeah.
manage it so I don't feel this way anymore.
I mean, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're crazy. You're like, something's wrong with me. I just want to put my finger on it. And so that's what they always say. Once you have a diagnosis of some sort, I feel like you feel empowered and relieved. Like, sure, it can be a little, shocking at first, but then you know what you have, and you know that you just need to learn how to manage it, right?
Completely. Since we've talked a bunch about really responsible supplementation has definitely come up. Another
Mhm.
experience that I had personally last March, which put me into a huge depressive state, which was actually horrible,
Mhm.
was I was put on high dose methylfolate, and I knew nothing about folate at the time. My folate level was low. The doctor was like, here you go. Here's 5,000. Is it micrograms folate? I'm pretty sure micrograms. Maybe it's milligrams. Doesn't matter. Anyways,
Yeah.
I went nuts. Like
Oh, yeah.
I was a mess. And it took me months to figure out again that it was a
Mhm.
supplementation. And now I have now figured out that I have the MTHFR mutation. I can't have that much folate. And so
Mhm.
I think really the point of this conversation is like, just because people say, oh my gosh, you need the methylated folate or you need the vitamin D or you need this, that, and the other thing, if you're not testing and you're not understanding these
Mhm.
high doses of things, it can really mess up your brain.
Oh, absolutely. Like, there was a time I was like, well, fish oil is good. So I just grabbed the highest dosage of omega-3 I could find. Literally in a week, I was super anxious and feeling depressed. And it's like, then I later learned, well, that was too high for me. And you also need some vitamin D3 and a little bit of calcium. They all need to work together. And so it's finding that balance, right? And just because you're like, oh, they always say on the news or in the, magazines, have more fish oil, have more omega, like, it doesn't always just work as simply as putting yourself on the highest dose, right? That's why I do consider, vitamins and minerals are just like medicine. They really are.
Yes, completely. And it's so great that we have access to them and that we can use them and that there are tools that we have available.
Mhm.
But it's kind of discouraging. And I'm sure you've seen this in your practice also. But I started working with a client recently, and on her form it said that she was taking DIM. And
Mm.
so that always raises a little red flag. And I'm like, okay, we gotta have a conversation about this DIM and why she started it. She just saw an ad that said, all women have high estrogen, and if you don't want cancer, put yourself on DIM. And she's been taking it for years.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes the easiest thing that we think in our minds, well, I'll change my diet, when I change my diet. But the easiest thing for me to do is grab that supplement and start taking it, right? Or whatever. And the diet needs to be number one in conjunction to drawing your labs and figuring out, okay, what do I need to work on? So absolutely.
Completely. And you mentioned sleep a little bit ago.
Mhm.
Um, and a lack of sleep or inability to sleep or
Mhm.
getting up, tossing and turning in the middle of the night, all those things can definitely affect our overall mental health.
Mhm.
What has been your experience with sleep quality in your practice?
So, yeah, they're definitely inversely related. They both affect each other. You can have poor sleep quality, gain weight, throw your hormones off, mental health. So it's like a vicious little cycle going on, and it can raise your stress hormones. So the biggest number one thing I see is absolutely keto. Like, I want my clients first say, I want them to plan out every night they're going to go to bed. Like, if they have been averaging like 5 hours every night, I'm like, okay, might not be realistic to get you to go to 8 hours every night. Let's increase that to where you go to bed 30 minutes this night. Try it for a week. Then let's increase it again. But absolutely, first getting that sleep scheduled in, and then in conjunction working with keto, because fat, it just really relaxes the brain. and calms it. So it kind of turns off the whole thinking at night, viciously going and can't turn it off mentality, where it actually will relax you, it calms you, and then you're able to actually finally start getting that quality sleep in addition to planning out when you're going to bed and increasing that amount of time.
I love the idea of planning when you're going to go to bed. I I just got into this practice a couple of months ago, completely by
Mhm.
accident. I started reading the Bible before bed, and my day ends at 8 p.m. Like, I don't care what's going on, whatever's happening. I'm going to my bed and I'm reading my Bible. And since doing that, just inadvertently, I'm going to bed consistently at 10 o'clock every night. And it's been months and it's so consistent. And I love it. It's great. I always just would go to bed like whenever I was tired. I wouldn't have any structure, and having that plan and structure of this is what I do at 8 p.m., nothing gets in the way of that, has been so incredibly helpful for my personal sleep.
And for you, probably reading the Bible is therapeutic and relaxing to you instead of reading the news or checking your social media, right? So yeah,
Very
absolutely
different.
finding, yes, absolutely finding that thing that's like, it puts you in that happy spot where you're at ease and you're calm and you find that peace, right? So that does, having that habits that lead you to bed does absolutely make the difference too.
Completely. And I'm sure you deal with this in your practice also.
So
Hot flashes and sleeping.
yes.
Like, do you have clients that just cannot sleep because of their hot flashes? And kind of what are the tools that you're doing to help with that? Because that will make you feel completely not okay mentally.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for the most part, I mean, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, those are definitely the ones for sure that will struggle with it. But more so, I see that mostly in week 1 and 2, just transitioning into keto, having all the weird funkiness. And so, yes, hot flashes are absolutely one of them. The biggest thing that I see that will help with hot flashes, well, sure, turning down the AC, I mean, turning down the AC to like 60 at night, sure, that'll help. But just having enough fat and having your bone broth, making sure you're getting the collagen, something about the electrolytes, those can be very beneficial for helping reduce that type of symptom, in my opinion.
Awesome. Yeah. In my practice too, I've been using a lot of maca.
Mhm.
I'll include it in the show notes
Yeah.
actually. A lot of my clients use maca to help with the hot flashes. I find that really helps. And CBD also
Yep.
to just like get them asleep.
Yes.
Like, let's get you asleep, because I find women who are in that age
Yeah.
group are usually kind of in that place where their work is quite
Mhm.
stressful and they're very overwhelmed and they're trying to coordinate a lot of their house stuff, and their kids are like teenagers or young adults. So there's like a lot of stuff going on. Like, just getting them in bed and getting them to sleep with something like a CBD has
Yeah.
been really, really helpful. um,
Good, good.
and what
What
is your
brand do
experience
you
with
recommend?
Oh, I use Eaton hemp. That's what I find. Like, there are so many. Do you find this with CBD oils? Like, there's so many garbage brands and they're all like, we're the best, but there's no science behind them. And I was just so incredibly frustrated with the CBD market in general.
Mhm.
It's like snake oil. It's horrible.
I mean, like, yeah, I was like towards supplements or any even keto products out there, right? It's finding that clean substance that is minimal, extra additives and is the pure stuff, right? That's what it comes down to in the end. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and like honest companies,
Yeah.
like it's so important. And I'm sure you also in your practice is like aligning yourself with awesome companies, and not even
Mhm.
just the company, but the people that work at these companies. Like, who's the owner? How do they run their business? How do they take care of their employees? What kind of programs do they have? Like, all of that makes a difference. And I take that
Mhm.
stuff really seriously, because you're recommending, I mean,
Oh
some
yeah.
CBD oils are $150 each. Like, people are putting a lot of money into this. It has to be good and it has to work because it's your name on the line and you want to make sure they're cared for.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Completely. Um, okay, so we talked about responsible supplementation, and really just testing is also really important. what about beyond nutrition? Like, I've been really fascinated in like helping my clients and just helping people in general to kind of see what behaviors they've been kind
Mhm.
of like that have supported them into the type of lifestyle that they have. Very similar to what you said, like planning out when I'm going to go to bed and planning out what I'm going to make for dinner. So you're not at 5 o'clock, like, we have no food in the house. What am I doing? Like all these different behaviors. Do you find that also in your practice, like really coaching people through the planning and the
Mhm.
structure and the behaviors that support their
Yeah.
mental well-being?
Absolutely. Like that is like whenever there's a hiccup or like, oh, I'm just getting busy. I'm like, well, did you make a plan for it? Did you have a plan in place? It kind of is like meal planning. Like you got to plan out your life and have just a weekly idea and write it out initially. What does that look like? And that goes for exercise. What type of exercise you do, how often you do it, what makes you the happiest. Or having non-food rewards. It's all those things you got to think about, plan about, and not just let a situation pop up, grab you by surprise, and you just go. So, yes, planning,
Yes.
that's my favorite.
The stuff catching by surprise. I think the ticket for me is whenever I say, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. What's your plan? I just won't eat.
Yep.
That is the worst plan.
Oh, yes. Yep. And that's literally what was happening. I had a client like that, throughout the holidays. She's like, I'm trying to follow the meal plan, but it's really hard. She kept going over to her family that lived close by. And so I said, well, what's your plan? Well, I don't know. I'm just going to go there. They have snacks out all the time. There are some that I like. Well, are there snacks there that you can always eat? And she's like, well, not always. So I was like, well, how about you have a plan that every time you go over, you contribute and take one of your snacks that you know that you can eat and enjoy and that you love while having a good social time. And she's like, oh, yeah. And then she started losing that weight because she had a plan, she did it, and she got to contribute and feel good at the same time. It wasn't like, she's going to an event and just acting like, I can't eat that. She contributed and shared.
Yeah, that's the best thing is the sharing. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's so rare that, living on a boat and having people constantly coming to our home, we're going to their home. It's a very social lifestyle. And I've met hundreds of people and I've been on hundreds of people's boats and they've been on ours. And it's never this uncomfortable thing when I'm like, I brought over pork rinds. Want to see what this tastes like with chimichurri? And everyone's like, yeah, yeah. What is that? What is a
Yeah,
pork rind? I don't understand. How do they make this? And it's fun to
fun.
get to educate other people on the decisions that we're making and why we make these choices. And you 9 times out of 10 say it's like a husband and wife. The wife
Uh,
is like, well, why do you eat like that? Like, what's going on there? And then it starts a conversation. She's like, I feel this way too. And oh my gosh, I struggle with this also. And it's never been a problem.
oh, no, absolutely. And if you do, for instance, ever have that one individual that's like, well, I've heard blah, 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 keto is horrible, blah, 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 it's their problem. They're deflecting. They have their own insecurities. Just turn the conversation around. Don't worry about it. Because, again, sometimes it can be like politics and religion and people are just set in their ways. But yes, I have found that it's very few and far.
Completely, completely. Well, where can people find more from you, connect with you? What do you have going on? How do people work with you? Tell us all the things.
Absolutely. So I'm on social media at Keto Girl Nutritionist, and that's also my website. And I would love to have you. I have a group program that is 3 to 6 months, and I work with ladies specifically who are balancing hormones to lose weight, all the good things, PCOS, hypothyroidism. But then I also do work with clients that I do get that want to work on bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD, and tailoring the keto diet specifically for that so that they do feel better. So, yes, I would love to have you stop by and say hi.
Amazing. I will put all those links. If you're watching the video, you can find it down below on YouTube. And if you're listening to the audio, I'll be sure to add all your special places where people can connect with you in the show notes. So you guys can watch for that. And Priscilla, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I always love chatting with other practitioners that help clients one-on-one to adjust their nutrition and really understand their bodies. So it was so great to have Priscilla on. I will include her links down below if you want to check out her Instagram or her website. And if you have questions about today's episode, you want to go deeper with me, there is a contact form right up there. If you just click that link, you can send me a contact question, or you can also find that link down below. And that does it for another episode. I will see you guys next week for another episode of the Keto Diet Podcast. Bye.